वददचन्द्रसुन्दरमुखम् ताम्रारविन्देक्षणम् भक्ताभीष्टवराभयप्रदकरम् कौपीनमात्रोज्ज्वलम् स्वात्मानन्दरसानुभूतिविवशम् सर्वानवद्याङ्गकम् श्रीमन्तं श्रीरमणेश्वरं गुरुवरम् योगासनाध्यासितम् ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणेश्वरम् ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणेश्वरम् ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणेश्वरम् हृदयकुहरमध्ये केवलं ब्रह्ममात्रम् यहमहमिति साक्षादात्मरूपेण भाति हृदि विषमनसा स्वं चिन्वतामच्युतव पवनचलनरोधात् आत्मनिष्ठो भवत्वम्। Namo Ramana. In this Friday Atma Vichara session from Ramanacentre Center for Learning, Bengaluru, we commence the Atma Vicharam by meditating on Bhagavan's Upadesham, and we have been reading his Upadesham from the book Ramana Answers, Self-Enquiry 1900 to 1950, which is a compilation of all the questions put to Bhagavan on the subject matter of Atma Vichara, and it has been beautifully compiled for us by our founder president, Sri A.R. Natarajanji. And we have been meditating on the questions put to Bhagavan between 1936 to 1950. And we have come to the 180th question in this section of the book, and which is a continuation of the 117th answer given by Bhagavan. And we will look at that and meditate on it. After that, we will have a 20 minutes Atma Vichara session, practice. And then our President Sarada Akka would be talking about Atma Vichara as it has been contemplated in Ramana Gita. Ramana Gita is a compilation of, again, questions and put to Bhagavan and answers given by him, by Ganapati Muni in the form of Sanskrit verse. And then finally, we will have the concluding prayers to Bhagavan. In the 117th question, answering to 117th question, Bhagavan had told the devotee to get rid of all the false notion of I. And that is by inquiring, who am I? So the questioner now is asking, in the 118th question, in doing so, isn't Guru's help necessary and useful? That is, to get rid of all the false notion of I. Isn't Guru's help necessary and useful? Bhagavan says, yes, to start you on the enquiry, but you must yourself pursue your enquiry. This part has been highlighted by A.R. Natarajanji. But you must yourself pursue your enquiry. Then the devotee says, to what extent can I rely on the Guru's grace in this? Up to what point is the enquiry itself to be carried on. Then Bhagavan says, you must carry on this demolition of wrong ideas by your enquiry. Till your last wrong notion is demolished, till the self is realized. So here is Bhagavan's answer to these two wonderful questions. Often as sadhakas, when we start practicing whichever path, not necessarily Atma Vichara, our mind, our intellect, having gone through the worldly paths, always feels that there is something that it can, like we studied in the school and we spend so many years, and by doing so we feel that we will get one day a certificate saying you are a degree holder in such and such a course or something like that. So we expect, even in the sadhana path, that there should be something that we would be able to achieve, some title that would be given to us, stamped on us, saying that you have achieved it. That would be our lookout in whatever sadhana we do. So we obviously ask this question, how long do we want to carry on? And we also have this notion that especially when we meet a guru, that the guru's grace can wondrously do something for us, so that we need not have to put a lot of effort. We can just, either the guru says something like Tathastu, or the guru says something like, okay, I will take care of everything, and we feel that we can rest our case of sadhana, knowing that somebody else will work it out for us. Usually the sadhana path for us, of most of us, starts on these two strong things, that can somebody bless, can somebody do some miracle, some blessing, some guru, and so that I need not struggle in this path. And second, and how do I not struggle? Somebody stamp that you are self-realized, and that means it is done, a deal that we have finished our journey. These two lookouts are often something that we have, and the devotee here is putting that question, and Bhagavan's answer is very important for us to meditate upon. In doing, when the false notion of I has to be removed, isn't Guru's help necessary is the first question. Bhagavan says, yes, Guru's grace is necessary to start you on the enquiry, but you must yourself pursue your enquiry. So here Bhagavan is saying the practice part. Once the Guru has given the path of enquiry, it is very, very important for us to keep on practicing it. Practice, Bhagavan says in yet another place in talks, that grace is vouched safe for those who practice. So it is important for us to recognize that it is that we have to keep on practicing it. The enquiry must go on. And as we keep on inquiring, it is like diving deep with the stone tied to find out the truth. And Bhagavan is saying, when we do that, we keep on practicing, the grace will help us to find that pearl which is hidden down in the bottom of the sea. So the practice is the most important part, which Bhagavan very clearly says. The grace blesses us, kindles that enquiry or some sadhana which is suitable according to our temperament. So not necessarily all of us will be in the Gnana Marga. There may be Bhakti Marga, there may be Yoga Marga and other Raja Margas, but it is the Guru's grace or the grace of the God that kindles, it initiates us in that path. And the sadhaka should continue to pursue that. That is what is being answered very clearly by Bhagavan. So in our sadhana, all we need to do is having full faith that we have got embarked on this path itself by the grace of the Guru. And not only that, if we continue to practice, Bhagavan says, the grace is vouched safe for those people who practice. So we should continue to keep on practicing. So therefore, when Bhagavan says grace in the beginning, grace in the middle, that's what he means, that we need to keep on doing it. And the grace is the one which makes us, which has initiated us, which keeps us going, and the grace at the end. Because when the division between the doer and the realization that the truth, the differences fall away, what remains is the grace alone. So the grace is at the end. So Bhagavan is saying here, to what extent can I, then the devotee asks, to what extent can I rely on the Guru's grace in this? Up to what point is the inquiry itself to be carried on? This is the another important thing, like, do I get a certificate? Do I get some milestone marks to indicate that I have progressed, I'm progressing? Is the kind of question the mind keeps asking us. So Bhagavan is saying, all of it, in inquiry we can see that anything objective that we are trying to find, as we inquire deeper and deeper, we understand by having any objective expectation, we are at the bottom holding on to the idea of division, the one to see and then the object to be seen. Now this is the Bhagavan is talking about, all such ideas have to be demolished. What is that one idea, if we ask, that is very at the root cause that we need to demolish, if we inquire? All the great ones, including Bhagavan, all say that there is only the truth. It is only God which is everything. But do we see it like that? Therefore, there is a wrong idea of division, that I am not experiencing that everything is God. I am experiencing myself as an individual. Though the books, the great ones, are all saying that there is nothing apart from God, nothing apart from that truth, nothing apart from that self. But we keep on saying, that is not my experience. My experience is that I am an individual trying to do something to have that experience where everything is God. So that is the wrong idea. Means the idea that I am separate from the truth and I will be able to become one with it. And that idea of difference, that at the root somewhere, that I am an individual separate from it, is something which is there when we embark on the journey of sadhana. So if at all we say, what is that one idea that has to be demolished? That is the idea that I have a separate existence. Therefore, Bhagavan has asked us to inquire, are you really existing separately? As we keep on inquiring, who am I? What is that I refer to as I? Eventually, we find this idea that I am separate, trying to find out the source of the I, that very division, that divisional idea in me, in which I sit down and I inquire, keeps me always looking for, always thinking of new solutions, or always doubting whatever solutions are given. So we eventually figure out this is not working, is it? We start to wonder how much holding on to this idea of the division, of the separateness, how much of holding on to these kind of thoughts, or how much holding on to these kind of doubts, is it really helpful? Is this going to help me realize this unity, or is these doubts ever keep me in a sense of separation? This will somewhere hit us as we keep on inquiring. So Bhagavan is saying we should carry on the inquiry until all the wrong ideas are demolished by the inquiry. Then one will no more entertain the thoughts, no more have doubts. When one has no thoughts, no doubts, like in sleep, no thoughts, no doubts, nothing to be achieved, nowhere to go. And there we see the self is shining automatically. So Bhagavan is saying here, that is what inquiry does. It demolishes all the construct which has created this false notion of individuality within us. Though all the Upanishads, all the gurus are saying there is only the truth. Whether we experience in Samadhi, in the Nirvikalpa Samadhi, Savikalpa Samadhi, or when we are wide open like in the waking state, all that we are ever experiencing is only the truth. And what is that truth? And that truth is the Sat Chit Ananda. That is what we are experiencing. When I say the flower exists, where does that existence come from? When I say I am aware of the flower's existence, where is that awareness coming from? And why am I looking towards the flower? For what purpose? So when we really see that, we see that we are actually ever experiencing only the truth. But because of the wrong idea, the idea that I am an individual, that until that is demolished, that is the only purpose that has to be done. Therefore, Bhagavan says whether it is Dvaita, Advaita, Visishta Advaita, all would agree that the idea of the I has to be first removed. And then we let us worry whether the truth is Dvaita, Advaita, Visishta Advaita. Because once the doubter is removed, once the one who is thinking, who is separate, is seen to be not real, and therefore is no more attended to, then that what is alone shines forth. There is no need then, there is no doubt about it then. So that is what Bhagavan is saying here, that is what the inquiry which he has graced us, which he says he embarks us in the beginning, and though we continue to practice it, and by that very practice, Bhagavan says, the grace will be vouched safe for them. If you keep on practicing, my grace will always be with you, says Bhagavan. And therefore, and the final result is, as we keep on practicing, that grace will reveal all the wrong ideas It'll help us transcend those wrong ideas by clearly seeing them to be totally wrong and not at all helpful, until all ideas, until all doubts are put at rest. And when one remains like in sleep, without any doubt, without any thought, then the self, which alone is, shines forth. Until the self is realized, we should keep on doing it. That is what Guru's grace does. That is what Enquiry does, says Bhagavan. With the abundant grace of Bhagavan, with which alone we have come to this most direct path for the next 20 minutes, no matter how many thoughts come, no matter whatever is the nature of those thoughts, we should diligently inquire to whom is this, and it will come out that it is for me, that individual notion which takes the consciousness and makes us feel as though limited to this body. Is it the real me? Who am I? And when I inquire so and try to find the source of real, what do I really refer to as I, then Bhagavan says, with that, the attention which was outward turned goes back to the truth which alone is. And with that, Bhagavan says, with repeated practice, all the wrong notions will go away, and what remains is the truth alone, which alone was in the beginning, which alone was in the middle, which alone is in the end, or which alone is in the here and now, because there is no past, future. What we are, that truth alone is at this moment. Until that self is realized as it is, one should diligently inquire, says Bhagavan. With his abundant grace, for the next 20 minutes, let us practice Atma Vichara. Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. Over to Shardaka, Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, shining as the self in all beings. By the immense grace of the self manifest as Ramana, in this part of today's satsang, we are meditating on the verses of Ramana Gita as a support to the practice of self-enquiry. The Ramana Gita is a compilation of questions to Bhagavan on various doubts expressed by different seekers of truth and his answers. And these have been compiled into 18 chapters by Ganapati Muni. And not only has he done the codification, he has also translated the questions and answers into Sanskrit verses. So this work is on the lines of the Bhagavad Gita. We are on the chapter Shakti Vichara, and the basic question which Bhagavan is addressing, the question of Kapali, which Bhagavan is addressing in this section of his answers, is a question whether the activity of God is eternal. So the activity is seen as Shakti. So Bhagavan has said that, see, the activity and the ground are not different from each other. So, this is what he has said even in Upadesha Saram. Sattaya hi chit, chittaya kya ham. The Sat and the Chit are not two independent aspects of the self. They are one and the same. However, while answering this question, Bhagavan is continuing over here. Vina Shaktim Narashrestha Swarupam Na Pratiyate Vyapara Ashrayascheti Dvinama Shakti Ruchyate. Without the power or the Shakti, without the Chit aspect, the Sat would not be known. As Nanda Kumarji also was sharing, if existence is there without consciousness, how would one know about the existence? And if consciousness is there without existence, can consciousness be there without existence? So existence or Sat is the ground. That is what Bhagavan says. Vina Shaktim. So, but without the consciousness, one would not be aware of the existence. So, it is known by two names, says Bhagavan. One is Vyapara or activity, the other is Ashraya. Vyapara Ashrayascheti Dvinama Shakti Ruchyate. Actually the self, which is itself Shakti, which is itself power, which is itself peace, is known by two names, says Bhagavan. One name is the movement or the activity, and one name is the Ashraya or the basis. Vyaparo Vishvasargadi Karyamuktam Manishibhi Ashrayo Dipadam Shreshta Swarupanatiricyate. No, when Bhagavan says that power is known by two names. One is activity and one is the ground. There itself we understand that the activity and the ground are not different from each other. See, for us, activity and what we take to be the self are different from each other. When I move my hand, it is activity. If I don't move my hand also, I am. So when I take myself to be the body, it is in activity at some point of time and it is not in activity at some other point of time. Therefore, the activity of the body and my existence are two different things so long as I am identified the body. So when I am asking about the activity of Ishvara, I am asking from the same perspective. I think that Ishvara and his activity are different, just like I and my activity are different. Similarly, if you take the mental activity of my thoughts, there also I am different and my activity is different because I exist with or without the activity. The thoughts are not I. The body is not I, but the body is active. So, is this activity physical, mental, is it eternal? Even in our case, it is not eternal. In 24 hours, our activity is not eternal. Then, what about Ishvara's activity? This is Kapali's question. But what Bhagavan is saying is Ishvara's activity is not apart from the ground, apart from the self. This division of the actor and activity, thinker and thought, the doer and the action is not there. Okay, both are having the same name. But if for our purposes of understanding, Vyaparo Vishwasargadi. So I say when we see something appearing before us, such as the universe, this universe is there. Who could have created this universe? How unimaginably vast is it? How is every planet keeping to its track in this solar system? Why is it that they never change their spaces between each other? How is it that the atom within every atom within us is a universe in itself? How is it that the breath that goes in comes out and the breath that goes out comes back inside? So when we look at the creation in Ulladinarpada Saddarshanam, Bhagavan says, Chitretra lokam cha vilokitascha. No, that's another one. Kaschit sarvai nidhanam jagatohamaccha vacha prabhu kaschit apara shakti. There is some great power. How do we accept that power? We accept that power not because of the being. The human mind is such that only activity is seen to be power. Activity is seen to be meaningful. The existence. So we say deep sleep is nothing. We didn't do anything in deep sleep. I did nothing, I knew nothing. What kind of a state is that? When I wake up, I must do this, I must do that, I must achieve all these things. All this is meaningful. So for us, activity seems to be power and the ground seems to be meaningless. However, Bhagavan says here that when we see the activity, we think there is a creator, there is a movement, but the ground is the self. The self alone is the ground. Without the existence, where can the activity come? So, without Sat, how can Chit happen? So, he continues. Vrittera bhavo Swarupam manya sapeksham Naiva sarvatmakatvatah Shaktim vrittim swarupam cha Yayevam veda vedasaham. Then he says, okay, if you are looking at activity, what happens? The ground is only the self, that he has already told us. Then, if we are looking at activity, we think that is powerful, but it is the self alone which is powerful. The self is powerful because it is not dependent on anything. The self is not dependent on its activity. The self is having the power, the Shakti of the activity by which we are seeing a universe happening. But it is not dependent on the activity, says Bhagavan. Swarupam manyasapeksham naiva sarvatmakatvatah. Because anyasa apeksham, there is nothing apart from the Swarupa. Because it is sarvatmakatvatah, it is all pervading, it is universal. When it is universal, it cannot have anything apart from it as its support. So, there is no separate support for the self. So, there is only the self, and therefore, he says, if you understand that both movement and the ground are one and the same, if you understand both these, then alone you are all knowing, says Bhagavan. Okay? That is to say, Bhagavan is saying over here, if we know only the activity without knowing the ground, what is the purpose of our knowledge, or of what use is our knowledge, or can it be even called knowledge at all? This is what Bhagavan is saying. Bhagavan is saying that he who understands, he who understands both the ground and the activity, he alone knows. If we say there is no activity, then that Shakti, we are denying the Chit of the Sat. So, when we understand Sat and Chit both to be one, then alone we know, says Bhagavan. Swarupam anyasapeksham naiva sarvatmakatvatah shaktim vrittim swarupam cha yayevam veda vedasaha. The one who knows the Swarupa and the Shakti vritti, he alone knows. Yayevam veda vedasaha. Vritterabhavo tu sato nana bhavo na siddhyati. If there is no movement, can there be multiplicity? Vritter abhavo nana bhavo na siddhyati. There cannot be multiplicity. So, we understand that it is only when thought moves, there is multiplicity. When thought does not move, when there is no vritti, vritti means movement, vritti means thought. When thought is not moving, where is the other? The other, so-called other, comes into existence only because of the movement. But satta shaktyati rikta chet vritte naiva samudbhava. Without the ground, without the achala tattva, without the self, apart from it, atirikta, can the vritti exist? Can the vritti arise? Without the self, can movement arise? When Bhagavan asks this question, he is actually emphasizing the fact that the ground includes everything. He said, no, that it is universal. So we should not be worried about the activity, or we should not get carried away with the power of the activity or the multiplicity of the activity which is happening and engrossing our attention, capturing our attention, but rather go back to that on which all this activity is dependent. Go back to the source. Bhagavan then says, Yadi kalena bhavita jagatah pralayo mahan abhedena swarupeyam vyaparo leenavad bhavet. Yadi, he just says, if in course of time, kalena bhavita jagatah pralayo mahan, if there is a great dissolution of the universe, then what happens? Vyaparo leenavat bhavet. The entire activity dissolves. Where? Into the Swarupa, which is Abheda. Here, subtly, Bhagavan is answering Kapali's question that activity can dissolve into this. So, activity comes and goes. Activity is not in that sense permanent. It may rise, it will subside. If it subsides, where does it subside? It subsides into the Swarupa. And this is our daily experience. What is the Mahapralaya? Our deep sleep is the Pralaya. Mahapralaya may be death. But what happens even in the Pralaya of the deep sleep? All activity gets absorbed in the self. So, Bhagavan is trying to tell us that there is a rise and subsidence of activity. In self-enquiry, we get back to the source of the rise and subsidence of activity by tracing the thought, which is the embodied form of activity, which is activity from moment to moment. Every thought is the only form of activity. So when we trace the thoughts back to the self, then the dissolution of the thoughts happens and one remains as the undivided abhedena swarupam, abheda swarupam, the undivided natural state of the self. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. Aparasachit sukavarirashe yasyormimatram bhuvanam samastam guhahitam tam ramanam gabhiram chintavihinam hrudi chintayami Chintavihinam Hrudi Chintayami.